Jerry has the 30 odd years of experience, over $450 million in revenue he's done. But Steve and I are part of this journey, but neither of us have actually built and like ran a business day to day. Steve and I have always been people that have worked for people that are building a company, all the way from directly to working with a CEO down to middle management, down to working the graveyard shift at Bilo. And if you don't know what Bilo is, it is a grocery store outlet, or it used to be. Then it got converted. But then for me, roofing was one of my first jobs. And I was just literally holding shingles and carrying them up the ladder, which I am glad I did not stay in that industry, because anyone who works in the construction field, hats off to you guys, because that is a lot of hard work. And there is a lot of sketchy situations that you tend to run into compared to working a desk job I work now in the corporate setting. But all that to say, our topic this week is something about that everyone, especially in 2026 right now, and Steve, you can feel free to chime in at any point, but it's one of those things that everyone is wanting to start a business today. They want to be a business owner. I blame social media for a lot of that, because social media has glorified or glamorified the entrepreneurship of building your own business, being your own brand, making a ton of money. Here's how you can sell products. Here's how you can kind of perceive yourself to the rest of the world from a success metric, and from a success of like the cars, the money, the cool conversations, the events you can go to. And the reality is, it's that 1% of 1% are those people that are on social media that have done just that. But they didn't do it overnight. They've done it for years. They've been building a following. They've been building a community. And so for us, we are starting essentially at the ground floor with Jerry, building out the Kronos Group. And the reason that I wanted to start a business was not because I wanted to do it from a popularity, or I just want to be my own boss. And a lot of people will say that that is the factor, that they want to have their own schedule. They want to control their own hours. And I blame a lot of books and gurus that make it sound like, oh, you can do a successful business. You can build a successful business within a 4-hour work week. And I never bought into that. And there's people out there that say they can, but is it really building a business and then kind of letting it run on autopilot, still building out a business and still having your own schedule and all of the great things that come with that? And I never really bought into that. But what I did buy into was that I've had enough managers in my life where I've had enough of those conversations with those managers and bosses. And coming out of those conversations, there was a lot of realization over time that I honestly could do what they were doing, and what I was thinking about adding to the business or giving a marketing plan or building certain things out, I was building for someone else. And then it wasn't until the last year that we all, and I say we, Jerry, Steve, and I, were down in Destin last year.
A year ago.
Around that conversation of starting the Kronos Group. And Jerry's been wanting to do the Kronos Group for a while. He's wanting to build out community. He's wanting to build out these cohorts for business owners. And for me, it was always a matter of like, oh, that's cool. That's Jerry's thing. But then over time, it became my thing, because I started to run with setting certain things up and putting certain things in place for that business. And then from those kind of conversations with Jerry, that's when I realized, oh, we can actually build this thing. Like, we can build this into a business. It's not going to be some little side hustle or a little side project. Like, it's going to be an extreme amount of work. And I realized with Jerry, he was good at certain things, whereas I was good at certain things, and Steve was good at certain things, but we weren't good at everything. And for me, being a first-time business owner, I knew that over time, I could become my own business owner and build my own business by myself and find the right people to build it out around me. but I'm still so young, and there were still so many conversations, so many skills that I lacked when it comes to just business knowledge and the crunch moments of being a CEO compared to being the second, third, or fourth person in a company. And so for me, co-founder or a partner was essential to where I'm at in life right now, because I'm only 33 years old. I don't have anywhere near the knowledge that Jerry has. And so for me, I do have the knowledge of marketing. And Jerry never really had to market his business when it comes to supply chain, when it comes to logistics. And that's what he was doing with a courier company. He was getting accounts and then keeping those accounts happy, and then building out a team of drivers, a team of dispatchers, a team at the business in the internal office. And so he wasn't really having to market anything. It was just finding the right people to fill those roles and then continue to invest and pour into them to do a better job year over year. But for marketing, especially in today's society, that is a lifeline of a business, because so many people use social media, they use email newsletters, they use paid ads, they use everything but TV. Whereas for the longest time, everything was TV or a newspaper ad or something like that. Now those are obsolete. It is digital first. And so with my background, that's where I went to Jerry and Steve and said, hey, if we're going to do this, this is what I can contribute to. And lo and behold, that's been the first 6 to 8 months of building this out, has been me building out the website, starting up the podcast with Jerry, figuring out what automations we can plug in AI wise of just making our lives easier, because we all still have full-time jobs. It's not like we stopped what we were doing and just went all in on this. And that's another thing is, in society today, I hear or I see a lot of social media posts where people will say, I hate this corporate job, or I hate the job that I'm doing right now. And so I'm going to quit this and go all in on this. And that's a great mindset to have, but it is not realistic, because you got bills to pay. You've got mouths to feed. If you have a family, you've got other responsibilities that business realistically is not going to be making money within the first 6 months, let alone the first year. And so for people to think that they can just start a business tomorrow and then by the third, fourth, fifth day, they're rolling in $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, that's just not realistic. But that's how social media paints it to be realistically, when it's all facade, because there is certain things that you just have to go through, and going through that suck, what Jerry calls it, and I've started to use that term more and more just in everyday life, is there's not a lot of people that are willing to go through the suck to make something great. They have a great idea, but then that idea just dies because they don't want to put in the actual work it takes to build that idea into an actual goal, into that goal into an actual reality. So that's my take on why I wanted to start a business. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but Steve, I'm interested to hear kind of like how you got started in this.
Yeah, well, technically, I guess you could say I've actually helped build several businesses. But to your point earlier, it's where you're working for somebody. Most of my life, besides the Bilo, which became Food City, I've worked for small businesses. I've worked for granite shops. I've worked for construction. I've worked either in doing it myself, really, with insurance, real estate. In those regards, you're actually working for yourself, even if you're working under a brokerage group. But during the time, I remember when I was doing that, because I have a lot of years of that. And to your point about the 4-hour week, I don't know what they're doing, because I was around small business owners probably, my whole adult life, besides maybe 9 years, and I'm 60. It's always been small businesses before. Moved down here to Tennessee from Michigan, did that for when I was in school. Got the degree, didn't know what I was going to do with it. And to your point earlier, I think that's what I think that's what's driving a lot of people right now, because they got sold the golden ticket. I know when I was growing up, it was the idea you get a college degree, that's it. Because they always said, these people that get college degrees make so much more than people that, don't get a college degree, and they push that forever. But what they were really doing is pushing the people that were engineers, doctors, architects, things like that, that were doing that. But for most people, they were just getting degrees. And nowadays they're getting degrees in everything. And it's made it harder, for people to really be satisfied because, it's all follow your passion, whatever your passion is. And the problem is, when they started doing the student loans, then you had no skin in the game. You just took money. They gave you money to go to school, follow your passion. And newsflash, nobody needs to hire you because you studied mating habits of butterflies because you like butterflies. There wasn't a job out there. A lot of people got degrees that nobody was asking for work in. They weren't looking for those people to get out of it, but they followed their passion. They followed what they were really excited about, what they loved. I kind of did, and I got mine in geology because I love the outdoors. I love the rocks. What I was going to do with it, I really didn't know. I was into petroleum engineering to start with. During the 80s, the petroleum market was boom, bust. And so every time you think like, oh, I'm going to stay with this, and all of a sudden it'd be a downturn. They're laying people off left and right. So then I didn't have anything to really go. So I finished it out because I finished what I start, got the degree, and then still worked in the warehouse for 2 years after that with a degree in hand because I really didn't know what to do with it. Could go into teaching, got in where I shadowed for a little bit, decided, the way I raised my kids and stuff, and then have to go in a classroom and do that. I was going to end up in jail because I wouldn't be able to tolerate, what was already coming into the schools for what they have to. And God bless the teachers that have to put up with a lot of that. That wasn't me. I wasn't built like that. I'll raise my own, but I'm not going to raise others in that regard. And so, Jerry had actually, I don't know, it's about 7-8 years ago, offered me an opportunity to come out to Portland and work with him. We worked for a while. It didn't seem like it was going to be a good fit. Came back. But what it did do was it really gave me insight because he was the one I was working with. Even though I worked small businesses, I got an idea what it was like to work for yourself because I lived at his house. So I saw what the lifestyle was like. First of all, I saw the long hours. Again, I don't know what the 4 hours. You only have to work 4 hours if it's because you're counting the time up till lunch, but that's every day. So if you're looking at 4 hours, I only put in 4 hours, till lunch.
Hey, everybody, quick break. I want to tell you about something I'm doing for the first time. I'm putting together the first Kronos Group cohort. That's 10 business owners max. And understand this is not a course. It's a peer-level work with other operators and direct access to me on a month-to-month basis. We're going to go deep on what actually moves the needle for businesses like systems and sales and leadership and staying sane while you're building something real, fitness, health, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. This group is for you. The people who get in on this first cohort get founder pricing, and that's the trade for going first. And it won't be open long, and it's not going to stay at this price for sure. If you've been listening to this show or me and thinking you need a room like this, you probably do. 10 spots, founder special. Check it out. The link's in the show notes.
It really gave me some insight into it, and it kind of opened my eyes to possibilities. I realized what was out there, what was available. Came back here, got back in another small business. I saw it differently now because I understood a little bit more behind the scenes working. I'd always been in a place where I was, easily number 3 or 4 or 5 person in the company, which is not a bad place to be. But like I said earlier, I helped build a lot of other people's companies. And I remember somebody said, if you're not building your own dream, you're building somebody else's. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the way I was wired, because Matt, you remember cleaning tombstones. You remember cleaning open houses. And it was always that part of me that knew I could do it for me because I was very well liked and very much missed when I left any company I was at because I did so much for it. And but I never had the presence of mind to think, I could do it myself. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have the belief that I could really do that. And this being, building this out is something that really has opened my eyes to what that possibility is. The biggest thing is to open my eyes to, like you said earlier, most businesses, you're not going to make money in the first year. If you do, you're a unicorn, but most of them are not going to do that when you're starting from ground level. Now, maybe if you buy into one, and even then, if you buy a business, like, because we got what they call the silver tsunami happening, where business is greatest transfer of wealth is happening right now. We're in the middle of it and still a lot of it to go. But they get in these businesses like, I'll buy a business. Thing is they have no business background. They have no business experience. So yeah, you bought a business, but you have zero. You came from a W-2 job like I did, and you don't know what to do with it, how to handle it, how to grow it, how to build it. And so getting into this, being around Jerry has taught me tremendous amount. a tremendous amount of understanding and still a lot to go. I barely know enough just to have a, 5-minute conversation about it maybe. But being in this community of people, being around you guys has really broadened my perspective on what's possible. I'm more in the sales side. I've been in the sales now probably for nearly a decade, doing different type of sales, and it's taught me a lot, worked a lot. And most of the time, even up to this point, I really work for myself. Every day I've got to go hunt. I've been 100% commission every sales I had. So I don't know what it's like to have the luxury besides a sugar mama, which is only so much of one, but it does give us that leeway to be able to do it. People that just quit everything and go, you must have a trust fund somewhere. And that'd really be nice to have that to fall back on. But for the most part, you're going to have to work just like all three of us do. Jerry's working his business, his development, the other things he's working on while he's trying to build this. You're doing the stuff at Walmart and various jobs, multiple jobs while you were doing this, and same with me with sales. I have to do that all day. Matter of fact, I usually stop my day to do this podcast early compared to when I usually do, because usually it's about 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. talking to people all day, trying to get them help with coaching. It's nutrition coaching. And so it's taught me a lot about how much, if you're going to be successful in it, the coaching. I've had coaching 2 different times in my life now, and unofficially, Jerry, all the time is always coaching us. And without that ability to have that, it wouldn't really help me understand what it really means to run a business. I mean, I could figure it out over the next 10 years, but I haven't got 10 years, so you condense it down by getting that help to figure these things out. Now I tell people all that, with their health, nutrition, you can go out there and figure it out. There is a ton of information out there. Matter of fact, there's too much, because you don't know which way to turn. And one thing I always tell people, you're either moving towards your goal or you're moving away. But let's not kid ourselves that when you sit and think about it, or you try to plan it all out, because one thing I found out in my life, all the planning and everything like that makes you feel good because you're staying busy. All the research makes you feel like you're doing something, but you're not doing really anything. You're not moving forward. Every day you're not moving and acting on that, ambition, you're moving away, because there's only so much time each of us get. And so the idea of having something like that, to be able to build a business that's like this is a fantastic experience for me. I started late, if you want to call it late. To me, I don't see it as late as much as it's the idea I have an opportunity. If I can say there's people that would kill to be in the position, like even at 60, to be able to build it, do something. One thing I do is I'm really adamant about taking care of my health, because I want to be here for the long haul. Everything I can do to build that out to make sure I can last in that. But I think that's where a lot of people are wanting to get into the entrepreneurship area. To your point, they make it look like all the cars, 4-hour days, everything like that. Like, yeah, I'm tired of slaving away 8-10 hours in a cubicle, and they get tired of that. Probably the reason that I lasted so long in the jobs I had, because they were small businesses. So even though I didn't own it, there was a lot that I was responsible for and everything. I mean, as far as the percentage of the business, whereas with you've got a part of it there, at Walmart, but you're not even a slice of the pie. It's so thin. I mean, the marketing's important and everything, but compared to the size of Walmart, the impact, is not as felt as much as when I had it. When I was in number, 3 or 4 at a company, over 1/4 of all the part of the company, whether it's installation or the shop people, that was a big chunk of the company that you had to be responsible for. So it did teach me a lot on that. And like I said earlier, I've built a lot of businesses, but I've helped somebody else build theirs. And so this is the opportunity to do it for myself here. But I think that's what a lot of people are frustrated with and want to get out, because they hate what they did, because they get a job or they get a degree, they didn't get anything. And a lot of people don't even do what they're in their degree. So they just have to go find some job. And depending on your degree, you really don't have much qualification. So you got to start at the bottom. And you had all these dreams, all those years you're working on that degree, you're working on that thing, and you get out, nothing against it, but maybe you're working it out back. Maybe you just working at, some cubicle job somewhere because that's the only thing they had, because whatever you got it in didn't apply. So I think there's a hunger for people. I think a lot of those people should have gone into trades, like, Jacob, your brother, my son, is doing right now. And, really learning something, doing something. You have that sense of, doing that HVAC, people just, everybody waits. You get everything wired in, you flip that switch, and homeowners are thrilled. All of a sudden the air works good. They have heat, they have air, especially down here in the South. So everybody's happy. So there's that sense of accomplishment that I think a lot of jobs that people get into, they just don't have. They feel like they're just a cog in the wheel, and it just doesn't amount to something. Now, there's nothing wrong with being that, because the number 10 person at Facebook is doing pretty good right now. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I think a lot of people sold themselves short, by getting that college degree, following that thing. And the problem is, if you'd had to pay for it all up front, it would have weeded a lot of people like, I can't afford to go to college, so I'm going to go get this job. And they really would have fulfilled more of what they really wanted to do, but it got made too easy. So everybody goes in and then they spend a good chunk of their revenue, the money they make in whatever job they get, trying to pay that loan back. So then they're saddled for that debt. So I think if you're working at a job you just can't stand, it's not in the field you went into, but every month there's that note for the student loan. It's just got to be mentally aggravating, for people like that. So, for me, it's just such a tremendous opportunity to be able to get in here and do this from where I've been.